Hello, my little mathematicians. Today, we're going to review how to go back and forth between fractions and decimals, and then learn how to go back and forth between fractions, decimals, and percents. Okay, so first off, if we remember how to do a fraction to a decimal, if that denominator can become like 10 or 100, great. Then we can go straight from that to a decimal. But if my denominator can't become a power of 10 or 100, then what will always work is taking the top number and dividing it by that bottom number, because this is literally saying top divided by the bottom. Well, 8 can't go into 1. It goes in 0 times. So then add a decimal and a 0, because 1.0 is the same thing as just 1. And now I can do 8 into 10. And 8 goes into 10 once. And when I subtract that, I get 2. Bring down another 0 because 1 is the same as 1.0 or 1.00. After a decimal, I can add as many zeros as my little heart desires. So now I can do 8 into 20, and 8 goes into 20 two times because 8 times 2 is 16. When I subtract that, I get 4. So bring down another 0, and 8 goes into 40 5 times. It went in evenly, so yay, finally I'm done. When I wanted to change this fraction of 1/8 into a decimal, I got 0.125. Okay, that should have been a review. For the next one, when you want to change a decimal into a fraction, okay, the whole number stays a whole number. But this number after the decimal, that's your numerator. And then your denominator is what place value this is in. Well, this is in the hundredths place, so it's 35 hundredths. And there you go. It's 4 and 35 hundredths. And then just ask yourself, can I reduce that? Yeah, I can reduce that by 5. And so 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So my final answer is 4 and 7/20. Perfect. Okay. Now we're going to go on and try to learn how do I go back and forth between decimals and fractions into a percent. Well, one thing that's really going to help with that is this little word dip. And you're like, why is that going to help me? Think as that D is like the word decimal. Okay. And of course, my pen's deciding to die on me. So D stands for decimal, and P stands for, you guessed it, percent. And that I is the into. Okay, so you're going to change a decimal into a percent. And you're like, okay, how does that help? Well, if you're going from a decimal to a percent, I'm moving to the right. So you're going to read it from left to right, okay, or forward. And that means you're going to move the decimal to the right. Okay, we always move 2 places, whether I move this way or this way, because you have to go around that I in order to get to the P, right? So moving from a decimal to a percent, you are multiplying it by 100, okay, or moving the decimal 2 places. But if I'm going the other way, if I'm going from a percent to a decimal, then I'm going to move it 1, 2 to the left. Okay, so percent into decimal, that means I'm reading it from right to left or backwards. And so then I'm going to move the decimal 2 to the left. Because this time when I go to the left, I'm dividing by 100, so to speak. And so then I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. All right, let's put that into practice. Okay, I'm going from a decimal to a percent, so that will help me with the little dip right here. Okay, and I'm starting as a decimal, and I want to change it to a percent, which means I'm going this way. So 2 to the right. So take the decimal and move it 1, 2 to the right. And where did you end up? You ended up with it as 136. Okay, and now it's in a percent. And you're like, really? Did that make any sense? Well, think about it. Normally, when we get a percent, it's like 0.5 is a 50%, right? 0.4 is a 40%. So they're all under 1. which means anything over 1 is going to be over 100%. So actually that answer does make sense. Okay, let's try this one. If I'm going from a decimal to a percent, that's not what I'm doing though, am I? I'm going from a percent to a decimal. So I'm actually going to move this way, which means I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. And you're like, great, I'm going to move the decimal. Where is the decimal? Well, think about it. If you were to write 97, this is the same as this, right? We're just too lazy to put that 0.0. So when there's no decimal present, it's behind the number. So that's where it is right now to start. And then I'm going to move it 1 to the left. So 1 to the left. And that means that 0.97 is the same thing as 97%. And you're like, okay, I mean, sure, I'd follow the trick. It's like, does that really work? Well, think about it. 97%, percent literally means out of 100. And what is 97 hundredths as a decimal? 0.97. So actually, yeah, it does make sense. Okay, the next one, a fraction into a percent. Okay, well, percent is out of 100. So if I could get this number to become 100, that would be great, because then I could just create an equivalent fraction. But unfortunately, I can't. So I know how to go a fraction to a decimal. If I take the top and divide it by the bottom, it can't go in. So let's add a decimal and a 0, because 7.0 is the same as 7. And now I can do 8 into 70. 8 into 70 goes in 8 times. And 8 times 8 is 64. Subtract that, you get 6. Bring down a 0. And 8 goes into 67 times. And you get 56. Subtract that, you get 4. Bring down another 0. And 8 goes into 45 times. So finally, you get that 7/8 is the same thing as 0.875. And if we remember dip, in order to go from a decimal to a percent, I'm going to move it 1 to the right. So 1 to the right puts us at 87.5%. Okay, and there you go. And if you could use a calculator, that would be really nice, because you just hit 7 divided by 5, you'll get this, and then you know to just move it 2 to the right. Now, I did say, 8 can't become 100 evenly, but if you remember, okay, so right here, yeah, I can't do the shortcut way, but can I do cross products and then figure out what this would be out of 100, which would give me the percent? Okay, so 8 times x should be equal to 7 times 100. And 7 times 100 is 700. And so 8 times something is 700. How do you figure out what that is? We'll divide by 8, because 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 1 times x is just x. So I isolated x, and I did that by dividing by 8, which I can do as long as I do the same thing to the other side. So 700 divided by 8, if you type that into your calculator, you get 87.5, which is 87.5%. And you're like, wait a minute. How come I didn't have to move the decimal here, but like there I did? Because right here I was solving for x, and x is over 100. And anything over 100, whatever the top number is, that's what your percent is. So I like this way, because then I don't have to worry about moving the decimal. Whatever I get, that's the percent. But this way still works. Top number divided by the bottom gives me the decimal, and then I can move the decimal to become a percent if I move it 2 places to the right. Okay, no matter which way you did it, you should have gotten 87.5%. Okay, finally, last one. Okay, you know the decimal is right here for right now, because 45 is the same as 45.0, right? And if you're going from a percent to a decimal, I need to move it 2 to the left. So 1 2 to the left puts us at 0.45. And you're like, great, I have it as a decimal, but it wants it to become a fraction. Well, 0.45 is 45 hundredths. And 45 hundredths is 45%, because any number over 100 is a percent. And there you go, you have it. Also, some of us could have known that a percent is out of 100, so you could have jumped straight to here and said, oh, that's 45 over 100, and 45 hundredths is that as a percent, which is not what I was looking for. They gave me that. I wanted it as a fraction, which I did. That's what I was saying, is you could have jumped straight from here to here, because percent means out of 100. The only way this isn't simplified, though, is because I can divide by 5. And 45 divided by 5 is 9. And 100 divided by 5 is 20. Is that fully simplified? Yes, it is. Okay, and let's double check. We wanted this percent into a fraction, and it is a fraction. We wanted this to end as a percent. We did. We wanted that to end as a decimal, and we wanted that to end as a percent. Perfect. Now you have all the tools you need in order to jump back and forth between percents, decimals, and fractions. You're going to do great.